Hi, welcome to this week's Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. We have a full house again this weekend. This week. That's my favorite thing. We've got Kelsey Swanson and Rollins, Kimberly Keyes, and Alyxandra Harvey with us this week. Ladies, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Marie Higgins also has a release this week, but she was unable to be with us, so we'll catch up with her on a future week. But I just wanted to mention that quickly. It's her Scandalous Rake. It's book 8 in the Worthington Legacy. So if you've been following along with that series, you want to grab this one as soon as it comes out. And I'll make sure I put the link in the comments so you can get it along with all the other books. But let's dive right in and talk to Alyxandra, who has book 3, Seduced by a Scoundrel. I love the cover for this one. It is like all the good hot pink things, like
beautiful.
That is all the good hot pink things. And it's book 3 in the Spinster Society. Can you tell us about this one?
It is. It's actually the last book in the Spinster Society, and they are linked. They're standalones, but they are linked, so you see characters come back and forth. So if you're the type of reader who really, really hates spoilers, then maybe read them in order. If you don't care so much, you can read them out of order too. So the last book is about Sybil. We see her very briefly in the first book. She's sliding down a banister being chased by footmen in the first scene of the first book. It's not her book, but she's there. She's my chaos gremlin. She was so much fun to write. She's just insane in the best way. And of course, she is balanced by Keir Montgomery, who is a Marquess and is very proper and not insane, mostly. He's basically just trying to keep up with her and trying to keep her alive. They've been neighbors since they were kids, and they used to be very close, and then they drifted apart in public. In private, things are different. So she is part of the Spinster Society. She's a spinster who essentially goes out into society and is sort of has it in for the fortune hunters and the rakehells and like the husbands who murder their wives, because this is Mayfair 1815. Right. So her and her fellow spinsters kind of find out who they are and take them down.
Oh.
And sort of like on bed rest, because she kind of got chained in a cellar. There was a thing and everyone thinks she should have a rest. And
as one does,
She's not the type. She gets really bored. She spends a couple days in bed resting, and then she storms into a gentleman's club, which are not allowed to women in 1815, steals the betting book, announces a fake marriage to Keir at the same time to sort of distract people, and then just like hightails it out of there, and discovers a secret society that was formed basically to take out the spinsters because they've been getting in their way.
Oh!
So she has to figure out who's essentially coming after them, and then Keir's just like running after her, let me help, you're gonna get yourself killed. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to write. They sort of bounce off each other in ways that I wasn't expecting, and I always love that.
Yeah, it sounds like big fun, and I love it when he's stayed and she's fun, and they kind of push against each other that way. So
yeah, she's the scoundrel in the title. Everyone assumes it's him, but it's definitely her.
Awesome. A lot to love about a good chaos gremlin.
Yes,
Very cool. Well, the next book that comes out this week is The Lion Whisperer, and it's Kimberly's book. And this is it's a little different for us because it's actually kind of like a mini series within the Lion's Den. Can you tell us about both about this book and then also about the other books that follow?
Yes, the series is called First Comes Marriage. I was wanting to do romances with the couples married, and I think it came to me because I chose to do one in Betsy Deb Lyon's world, and she's a matchmaker. So that has been really a lot of fun. And what kind of ties it all together is that there's a group of women in a book club. It's called the Ladies Literary Society of London. And so it sounds like it's a very staid and bettering for them. But actually, they're all about reading about romances and also women's property rights and marital rights. And they have a little section in one of the girls' bookshops. So that's how they even got invited into the club, is that if they were there perusing those particular type of books, then, they might be somebody that would be like-minded. Mm-hmm. So the first book is called The Lion Whisperer, and there you meet Amelia and Chase. And Amelia is the only daughter of the Duke of Falscape, and he's always trying to get her in line. He's always trying to straighten her out. and she's just unstraight outable. But she's not a bad girl, you know. He just wants her to be proper. And you find out why by the end of the book, so I can't tell you why, but he does want that very much. And then enter the Iron Lion of Barossa, who he he had kind of wildish parents, and he now lives with his, well, he doesn't live with them, but he's the heir of his uncle. And his uncle is kind of a really fun, rascally kind of guy. So he has to be the responsible one in the family. And because the uncle and the dad have a bet at Betsy Dove Lyon's gambling den, he ends up having to marry her, or their side of the family is going to go bankrupt. He's the responsible one. He has to do it. So anyway,
Poor lamb.
I know. What I love is that, like one of my reviewers said was, I love the way he thought he was going to tame her, but she over and over again runs circles around him. And so, yeah, it's really cute, and I love their character arc. And the next one is a widow.
Fun.
So I just finished polishing that one. I have to go through one more time to shorten it because I do write very long. But Mrs. Dove Lyons has sold him to my widow. The widow comes in, she needs a husband for the reason that you find out. And she says, well, I think this guy's really good because, you know, he meets all the criteria and he's almost certainly dead. She's married to him and living in his house and been snooping all around his house and reading his journals. And she's really sad that he died because she thinks that she would have really liked him. And so that's been really a lot of fun.
Sounds like it. What's it like writing in the Lion's Den world for you, having to fit within the construct of the already existing world?
Well, I listened to and read a bunch of the books, and it's not what I was worried about. Was the hardest part is making sure that I meet everyone's expectation about how much Mrs. Dove Lyon is in the book. But she does, she does keep popping in, you know, so it works out. She's in the beginning and the end. And this one, she's actually friends with my hero, book 2, that is. And he mentions her a lot. And the impression I have of her, she's quite crafty. And, you know, I just love her. So.
Well, Catherine's writing her story, which I think we're going to get. I think we're going to get this fall, and we're going to do a Kickstarter for it. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm excited to see how it all fits together. So
yeah, we get to find out. I love how every book says, well, some say she was a courtesan, and some say she was, and I love that. So of course I had to put that in mind too, because I just
very cool. Very cool. Well, the next book that comes out this week is the Case at Castle Rock Cove. I always forget and leave the Cove off and just do the Case at Castle Rock. Case at Castle Rock Cove, and that's Anne's book, and it's book 4 in the Beaumont Secret series. Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, this is the final book. It's a quartet, so this is the last one. And for people not familiar with that series, it's in the Dragonblade Sweet Dreams line. So it's kissing-only romances. I like to make that really clear so people don't read it and be like, oh, there's no spice. I'm like, yeah, sorry, there's spice. The next thing I'm writing will have on-page steam, but this is different. So in this book, the premise is that there's a young man who's living with his grandfather, and he combs the beach. This is kind of his thing, is he combs the beach every morning and collects things like seashells, but he's mostly interested in what he calls man-made artifacts, things like sea pottery, sea glass, things that may have come off ships, right? So the book starts when he finds a bottle with a message in it, right? And I refer to this as the message in a bottle meet cute, because I don't know if there's a name for it, but it's kind of like that, the iconic trope of you find a message in the bottle and you open it up and it turns out that the message in the bottle is from the female lead, Willa. Her family came to the seaside because they had influenza and they're there to recover, but she's pretty much healthy and recovered while her mother is still sick. So she's trying to keep herself entertained, and they're staying with a cousin who doesn't have any books, which for most of my characters is a tragedy, right? Like, how can, and the town is too small to have a circulating library, which is another tragedy. So that's why she writes a note and throws it into the sea. It's not so much rescue me from dire peril. It's I'm dying of boredom. If you can recommend a place where I can get some books, yes, exactly. So of course, Ben writes back and says, oh, you can borrow some of my books. Here's some of the ones I have. Or we could meet and go writing. But I guess it's not a twist. Maybe it is. The twist is that they each signed the letters with their initials rather than their full names. And because Willa was looking for a friend, she just assumed that the person writing back was a woman. And Ben made the same assumption. So they meet. Yeah, right. So when they finally meet in person, they're both really surprised because they had built up this idea about what the other person was, not even based on clues in the letters, more based on what they wanted
the assumption
the
of
other
what it was
person
going
to be.
Yeah.
Right. So then it's initially a big shock and oh, well, we can't be friends because, men and a woman can't socialize together freely. And of course, they end up falling in love because this is a romance. One of the things that's different between this book and the previous one is that in this book, there's not a lot of conflict between the leads. They actually get along really well. Most of the conflict is external conflict. Like the other books in this quartet, there's a mystery element that has to be solved, and there are characters who try to interfere, and there are social pressures that they're pushing back against. But it's not like a high angst one where they're fighting and breaking up and getting back together. They get along really well. It is all these other things causing that. So for people who want a sweet romance where there's not a lot of emotional drama, that might be a good fit.
I sometimes that's exactly what I want. I want a couple who realistically falls in love, and there and there's other stuff that gets them, but but there isn't a whole lot of emotional drama. That part's exhausting sometimes, and so sometimes
I mean, it's good. Some of those books are amazing, but you don't always.
And you mentioned it being in Sweet Dreams, and that's the other thing I love is that in Dragonblade you can, the lines are very clearly delineated, so you can read Flame, or you can read Originals, or you can read Sweet Dreams. You can pick what you're in the mood for at that moment, and know that you'll get what you're looking for. I have a girlfriend who used to talk about she wanted all the sizzle and none of the steak. It's like she wants the build-up stuff, but not not the main act. So awesome. So and this is the last book in this series, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Very cool. So Kelsey is the last book that comes out, which is actually the first book that comes out this week. I'm doing this this is going to make your calendars work right. And it's Courting the Duchess, and it's book 1 in a brand new series. It's the Spy Society. Can you tell us about this one, Kelsey?
Yes, so it's the first book in my Spy Society series. It is part of the Flame line, so it is spicier. So it has the spice, but it still has some steak. So it follows Elena and Sterling. Sterling is the Duke of Morton, and it's they get married very young, and he disappears on their wedding night without ever consummating the marriage.
Oh,
He
wow.
just leaves.
Well, that's problematic.
Yes, just a little dramatic. He leaves, he doesn't tell her why, and he leaves believing he's doing the right thing. He is sent on a mission, and he believes he's going to be back and pick up where they left off. Well, months and years, and it turns into an 8-year absence instead of a brief absence. And he comes back, and in the meantime, Elena has grown up. She has formed a ladies' reading society, a scandalous reading society, where they jump on couches and perform plays and read illicit literature and have fun. And they're a group of friends, and everyone either hates them because they want to be them, or they hate them because they're giving women these ideas. And so Sterling returns during one of these meetings, and it doesn't go well.
Because the last thing she needs is a husband getting in.
Exactly. She's found her place in the world. She's grown up. She has found her voice. She survived all of the scandal. He married her and left her. Why couldn't she keep him? What was wrong with her? And she rose above all of that to kind of create her own persona. in society, and he came back and he apologizes. He does, but he doesn't tell her why he left. And he just tells her it was a good reason. I swear, do you forgive me? And that goes over like a ton of bricks, as you expect. So the inspiration was Taming of the Shrew. So there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of he takes one step forward and she shoves him back 10 steps. A lot of great banter, a lot of interactions, a lot of, I always did love him, but he did this to me. And then he gets upset because she won't accept his apologies. And it's really about finding a way to love who you are now, and remembering that you did care for this person back then. So it's a lot of overcoming all of these obstacles. They each have secrets. Obviously, he's got very big secrets. It is a spy society. He was a member of the spy society over on the continent. He was, doing some things over there, helping the British cause. And it was a lot of fun to write. It was a lot of research into what would go into sort of espionage during the early 1800s, what the political climate was. My background is in British history and literature, but this was the step above. But it was fun. So it kicks off this series where there's, like I said, it's part of the Flame line, so it is very spicy, open door stuff, lots of angst and longing, and it really introduces kind of a meshing of this espionage and romance. So for people who love a little bit of mystery and people who love some spice, this is gonna be it, hopefully.
Very cool. Very cool.
And then book 2 is we're introduced to the hero in book 2. He is Sterling's accomplice. He's basically his partner. He works beside him over on the continent. He was with him for 8 years. Working very closely together, and he gets very in deep undercover mission. So it's really playing up the spy aspect of the series. So yeah, it's fun.
So it's connected through the men then? The men are the spy society part?
The men, yes. So book 1 is Sterling. Book 2 is Oliver Black. He is the undercover agent. And book 3 involves a mistaken identity with Oliver. So that's how we meet the hero for book 3.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like big fun. And I love the premise that you have to get to know somebody now, and you have to, this is a little bit about what Anne talked about too, that idea that you have to see the person for who they are standing in front of you, and not with all the perception that you're bringing into the situation. That see and be seen thing in romance, I think, is incredibly powerful. So awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Well, ladies, we have a little bit of time left over to talk, and I know there are a couple of series that are finishing, and two that are finishing and 2 that are just starting. And I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about how you decide what you're going to write next. What's the thing? What's the thing that grabs you? What's the research you do ahead of time? What is it that pulls you into a story and makes you want to stay long enough to turn it into a series? Look at everybody jumping right up, ready to go.
My next series is still Regency historical romance, but with magic and witches and dragons.
Oh,
and
fun!
I'm so excited. I just finished the first book last week, so my brain is very, what book are we talking about? But for me, it was that I've written, before I was writing historical romance, mostly only wrote fantasy and paranormal, and I missed that. So to be able to put them together, the best. Chef's kiss. So happy.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, I can imagine.
That sounds wonderful.
Love dragons.
I was like, I read the last, 3 or 4 books. I'm like, where's my dragon? I couldn't what do I do with these spies and Mayfair? And where's my dragon? So now I get Mayfair and a dragon.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, my son and I have been fighting back and forth about what dragons actually look like, and he kept saying, because we both read Fourth Wing, and he's like, no, Mom, they can't be like bulldogs with wings. That wouldn't work. I was like, maybe, but I like it. I'm okay with it, on account of dragons. Oh, well, that sounds like so much fun. What about you, Anne? How do you decide what comes next?
So my next series is actually also historical fantasy romance.
Fun.
But
because we need more of those.
Yes, and it came about in a different way though. When I started writing romance, I started writing Regency fantasy, and And I was originally trying to find a literary agent. So I was like querying agents. And the thing is, there just wasn't enough interest in historical fantasy. Like, there actually are a lot of people who write gaslamp fantasy and historical fantasy, but most of them are indie published. The big publishing houses don't tend to have like whole lines of it. So that's why it was really exciting to me when Dragon started up Moonrise. It's like, okay, this is drafted these manuscripts and then eventually realized, well, I don't know what to do with them. I'll go on and write something else. So for me, it's like coming back to things that I'd already worked out and revising it and making it stronger, because I'm a much better writer now. This was a couple of years ago that I drafted these, and I write a little differently, but so it's hard to answer that question about how do I pick, because this is like, oh great, now I have a chance to publish this thing that I didn't think there was a place for, because people would tell me, well, romantasy is really hot right now, but people want a medieval setting, not a Regency setting, and I don't think I believe that, because I know that there are people who like mixing these, but it's kind of exciting to see this kind of little subgenre of a subgenre, whatever it is, taking off.
Yeah. When we were at the LA Festival of Books, there were so many readers that were looking for that. So it's really nice to see that kind of, everything goes cyclically, everything moves in and out. So it's nice to see that it's getting its moment now. Very cool. Kelsey, what about you? How did you start the series? Which came first, the plot, the characters?
It's hard to say because these characters actually, these stories came about probably 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have a notebook full of about 52 stories drafted. So sometimes it's the characters, sometimes it's the tropes that, I haven't played around with that trope, or sometimes I think that would make a really interesting, plot twist, or it just kind of depends on the story. I know my next series with Dragonblade's Flame line is a Reformed Rakes series. All of my books take place in the same world, so there's a ton of crossover. So it's if I find like an interesting secondary character that I introduced in one book, I'll go, okay, he deserves a story, or she needs a happy ending, or something like that. So it really just kind of, I let it lead me, as opposed to sitting down and deciding, here's what I'm going to do. So it's kind of more organic.
Yeah. I love those kind of connections when you're reading a book and you see a character that you knew from before.
Me too.
I love that. Kimberly, what about you?
Well, at least this time I know that I had been already toying with the idea of marriage romance, because I really like reading it, and I'd been thinking about it, and I also like when the characters get along. But so how do you have a romance that spans the whole book where the characters get along and they're married? Well, it sounds like yawn, but no, there's ways to do it. Secrets and external things and different things that they want that keeps them from that being the thing. And the other thing is, I have certain tropes that I just am on fire for. And so when I was deciding I said, okay, I'm going to do marriage, and that works because I can do the Lion's Den. And then I started thinking, okay, what are my favorite tropes? So the first one was really supposed to be a bully trope, but it was surprisingly hard to do a bully trope in Regency, because then he just seemed, it was going to be awful. So instead, he was more of an alpha, stoic, right? And he was trying to get her in line, and there's a secret, like she doesn't know about the bet, but she falls first. He falls harder. I love that. That's in. Actually, it's going to be in every single one of the books, right? And then the widow one, I always wanted to do a widow one. I also always wanted to do a hidden identity where the woman is hiding as a boy, but I've already done that. So the third one that's coming, I don't know. Oh, well, I really don't know where that came from, except that it just came to me like, oh, well, she's the romance author in that group of friends, and all of her books are written about the same man. Everyone's like, where do you get your ideas, Georgina? And she's been making up these stories about this guy that she's in love with, and she writes book after book after book.
Oh, fun.
I love that.
That's going to end up
Mhm.
with them, of course, and that one is an amnesia one. So like I want to do an amnesia one. I want to do a widow one. I want to do a bully one. So I probably will eventually do a bully one, but it will have to be in a contemporary line. So
Very cool. Very
it's
cool.
tropes and yeah.
Does anybody else have tropes that you just love to write over and over again? The ones that you either love to write or that you love to read?
Down family. I tend to be in, I think, every single book. Even if I'm trying to do something different, it tends to be the foundation, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just like banter, so enemies to lovers tends to lend
Mhm.
itself to that a bit.
That's
Or
mine.
like friends to strangers to lovers, which is the seduced by a scoundrel. That sort of like, I know you, but I don't know you anymore, but I know you well enough that I can just really get under your skin.
Yeah. That sounds fun. That's your favorite too, Kelsey, is enemies to
Yeah,
lovers?
the enemies to lovers. I love the back and forth. And I know like some people don't, they need a little bit of sweetness, but I love angst. My books are super emotional. I like hurting my characters.
I love it. I love
Sorry.
She said it out loud on camera, so it's like going to be immortalized forever.
Yes, I do. I'm like George R. R. Martin. I gotta cause a little pain.
What about you, Anne? Do you have favorites?
So I really like Marriage of Convenience, but I also like, I don't know if it's really a trope, but friendship first romances where they start off as friends and then fall in love. I've been told that's really just slow burn, and honestly, probably all of the Beaumont secrets to some extent are slow burn. Nobody falls in love immediately at first glance. It's more like a slower process of getting to know each other for the most part. But the thing that really distinguishes my books is that no matter what trope I try to write, my male leads always end up being like soft cinnamon rolls. Like I wrote my next book is a reformed rake fantasy romance. And even the rake is like this soft, squishy, sweet guy. He just doesn't follow the rules about propriety. So it's like, I'm not sure that I could write an alpha male.
Well, it's like that's one of the things that I love the most is that you can pick what you like the best. And if you're going to spend time in somebody's head, you should spend time in somebody's head that's like the story that you want. So, I love that there's so many different flavors of romance and so many different flavors of stories that we can pick what we want in the moment that we want it too, because my taste changed.
Right.
So, awesome. Well, ladies, it was a delight to talk to you today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm so anxious to have a new series for Dragonblade. I'm so anxious to expand the Moonrise because, like I said, it was really popular when we were at LA Festival of Books. It's what people were looking for, and I think everybody loves a good escape. So if you're going to give me historical with dragons and fantasy in a plausible way, I'd love that.
I wish I could write that, but instead I can't. So at least I love reading it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's something else that I love is that so many of the writers that I talk to are really avid readers. So lots of times I come away with huge book list recommendations from talking to all y'all. So I really appreciate that. Well, I'm going to say the same thing that I say every week because it's true every week, and that's Dragonblade books are their best deal on pre-order and release. So you want to grab them when they're on pre-order, when they cost less than a bad cup of coffee. So get them then. And if you don't grab them then, you can always read in Kindle Unlimited. So, ladies, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. I really do appreciate it.
Thank
you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it was nice meeting all of you.
You too.